going on,
What's going on, man?
Shannon's trying to get comfortable and all that.
Yeah. I see you setting up your joint and all that.
Yeah, you got to do it.
Yeah. So what's going on, man?
Shannon's just, getting ready to drop my new project, the Anti-Socialite, on May 5th. So, we're in the middle of the
Cinco de
program
Mayo.
for that.
Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
Why antisocial? Why that name?
Basically, the name came from this, right? Like, we're in the midst of what I call, like, a socialite culture, where people like Snooki from, like, the Jersey Shore is important now in our culture, but they don't really contribute anything to it. Or, like, people like Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie, we care about what they think or what they wear. Like, socialites throughout history were people who actually created the culture, who like were benefactors of artists and whatnot, who allowed culture to be created.
Okay.
So the anti-socialite is saying, I stand against this socialite culture we're in, where like all you have to do is be on VH1 and all of a sudden you're famous. But you're not famous for anything. You're just famous for being famous.
All right.
So like I want to be a person that actually stands for something through my music and through my art. So that's why the project is called the Anti-Socialite. Like, it's not me saying I'm antisocial or socially awkward or anything like that, because I'm far from it.
All right. I just got to ask you a question, though. What does Snooki got to do with your music, though? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can see her just coming with that rap album against you or something like
I mean, she's just an example. Like, it's not like I'm aiming at her head on a record. Like, I'm not going to, there's no diss records towards Snooki coming or anything like that. But it's just an example of, like, the type of people.
Just a sample of what you're about.
Yeah.
So where are you from?
I'm from Harlem.
Harlem? Okay. What part?
I grew up on 135th and Lenox Terrace, for those of y'all who know Harlem.
Okay.
I've been pretty much within a 10-block radius of that for the rest of my life.
So how long you been rhyming?
Seriously, I've been taking it seriously since like 2006.
Okay.
Before that, I was playing baseball in college, so like I wasn't really.
Wow.
Music
was my
hobby.
Like, stop
you
the
left baseball?
and move.
Yeah, well, baseball actually left me. Like I went to Howard University and they cut their baseball program in my junior year. So they just completely cut the I was being recruited and everything, and they just cut the program.
Yeah, because I was actually having, not to get off your interview, but actually, since you play baseball, it's actually easier to get into professionals than any other sport because you can just be nice in one sport of baseball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can just hit and go there.
Not until you actually make it to the major league level. Like, there are people who get stuck in the minors who will never, ever, ever have a cup of coffee in a Major League Baseball stadium. They'll be in there for 15 years, their whole career making pennies, but still playing professional sports.
A lot of minor league though can make like 80 grand.
Yeah, no. You'll make decent money, but you really only actually make decent money if you're an early round draft pick.
Okay, and
then you're fast tracked to the majors anyway.
Like
that. We could be talking about baseball all night.
That's just
like that was my life.
I think my producer liked baseball, but I mean, I had an argument actually, like just to get like. Your son, you can be nice in one position though to get to
one position, but not really one aspect of the game because there's so many people who are like for example, there was a dude I played against when I was at Howard that played for Southern.
Yeah,
he was like their starting shortstop. This dude went ape on us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like. Now he's starting for the Milwaukee Brewers, but he was nice at everything. They could have put him anywhere.
Okay.
He played one game against us at shortstop, one game in center field, another game at second base. So he was, and there were a gang of other players on their team who were good at one thing, but none of them made it as far as him.
Okay.
So you might make it into the minors, but that's like the equivalent of being like. And I don't want to say this and start like a controversy or anything, but it's like being a battle rapper your whole life. You know what I mean? Like you can battle and battle successfully, but you still haven't sold a record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like the difference between the minors and the majors. But that's no disrespect to anybody battling or anything like that.
Cool.
So you don't do the battle thing?
Nah, I've never done that.
All right. So where did you get the name Esso from?
It actually started out as the word soulless. Like I'm a real laid back, calm person. And I thought that word described me pretty well, but I thought it like sounded just a little too intellectual. So I like took the first two letters of it, S and O, and I just didn't want to have a 2-letter name. Because it was like T.I. just broke at the time. I thought of this. And like Jay-Z's out there and all these other people. So I didn't want just the letter S and the letter O. So I made it ESSO.
Spelled it out.
Yeah.
Okay. So what type of music do you bring in the game? Like, it seems like the internet, like what's so important that, because I know you have a big internet buzz. And actually, like you're one of the first artists that I've seen come by themselves and just hooked up their computer like, boom, we're going to get my shine on. So.
Well, now, you know, I mean, I'm not like Ustreaming or nothing. That's just for my footage. Like,
no, that's great.
Yeah. But like, what I think what it is with the internet is like, there was a time when I kind of like walked away from that. I didn't really want that. I didn't want that stigma attached, because there was a time when it's like, oh, you're an internet rapper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not an internet rapper. Like, I have like a mixtape trilogy I did with Sycamore between 2006 and 2008 that was in the streets like that. But what I found was the internet actually allows you to deal directly with the fans, as opposed to going through the middleman of, you know, the people who have the mixtape stores and all of that. I can do a song, send it out, and it's at the people who are going to decide whether they like my music or not, as opposed to like having to worry about, do I need this person or that person to co-sign it or whatever. You know, you still need those cosigns, obviously, to make it on a different level. But I think with me, it's just like, it allows me to experiment a little more and like define my sound. What you asking that, like, I think more than anything, I want to be someone that does something new for New York. Like, I think New York has been we've been so able to rest on the 90s, because the 90s in New York was the golden era of everything.
That's a good answer.
But it's like, I look at it like this: if I'm 25, me doing the 90s is like me saying I want to be 5 again.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like do we really want to go back that far? Because now it's 2010, 1990.
What's your
was 20 years ago.
What about the music that's coming out now, though? Like, I mean, the 90s was the golden era.
It was the golden era, but there has to be a way for us to recreate that feeling with a different sound.
Originally.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because the people in the 90s weren't doing the 80s. The people in the 2000s weren't doing the 90s. And that's New York also. Like, if you go back to a Dynasty album or the Blueprint, that doesn't really sound too much. Like, it was still different than Reasonable Doubt.
The 90s was the era of the samples, though.
Yeah. Right.
They sampled everything
and the 90s was also the era where hip-hop became this commercial machine. Mm-hmm. So now we're dealing with, like, the aftermath of that. So now that, like, we're not as commercially successful as we were during that era, if we don't do anything to change it, then we're going to die out.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to be able to actually, you know, be experimental a little bit, especially as New York, because New York artists aren't really getting any opportunities right now.
So that means we're going to be all the way turned up. That's the future.
Nah. No. I'm not saying that. See, and that's another thing, right? Now, a lot of New York artists lean on the South because the South is popping. I'm not leaning on the South at all. Like, when you hear my project, you'll realize I'm not leaning on anyone else's sound. I'm actually trying to create something that, like, I've come up with in my head, and see if see if my producers can actually recreate what I heard in my head. And I think with the Anti-Socialite, we did a really good job of that.
So nobody's comparing you to anybody?
Not right now.
What do you compare your style to?
I try not to. Because if I can compare myself to someone, that means I sound like them.
I mean, not really. You compare, like, yo, you know, this is my style, but not you completely sound like them. Like, I bring my sound.
I mean, I think it's easier.
So what is your sound then?
What I think my sound is like, I think the samples are different. Like, I sample a lot of different genres other than just like the typical soul sample or like a hard rock sample. Like, I listen to a lot of different types of music. So I incorporate the music that I actually listen to into the music that I make.
Okay.
I think it's just a very, like, forward thinking thing. Like, it's still somewhat sample influenced, but I think it's like has a futuristic leaning feel to it. Like, even when you hear the record New York, New York, like, it doesn't sound exactly like a traditional New York record, but it still gives you the feel of some of the New York records that you probably know and love.
Can we get into that right now?
Yeah, let's do that.